Hey there, I am so glad you're here. Come on in and enjoy Coffee Chat at the Cubby Hole. Okay, you might be thinking, coffee sounds fun, but girl, what is the Cubby Hole? The Cubby Hole was a divine little nudge on my heart, if you will, to build this space in our basement, in our home, where our friends and family could come and receive encouragement and love. And that's exactly what we've been doing. I've always known that the Cubby Hole would have a ripple effect out into the world, that it could bring encouragement and hope, not just to people that could visit here in person. That is exactly why I do Coffee Chats. I get to take some of the coolest people that are just like you and just like me, who have skill and talent, but most importantly, they have a vulnerable, relatable story that we can all glean some hope and encouragement from. So grab a coffee, cozy up, and enjoy Coffee Chats at the Cubby Hole. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Coffee Chat at the Cubby Hole. It's so nice to be back live in the Cubby Hole. Last week, we hit the road and went on a little trip, so we were live in a different location, but it's always so fun to be here, especially with these winter months coming, with the coziness of the Cubby Hole. I can't wait to introduce you to my special guest today. He's gonna bless some hearts, I just know it. But what God laid on my heart this morning so clearly is to share with everybody the brief version of why this space down here is called the Cubby Hole. And I'll tell you why I feel that he put that on my heart. This space is called the Cubby Hole. All you know that. The reason that it is called the Cubby Hole is about a week before the first live event we were having down here, I was putting the last coat of paint. I was rolling it on the stage. And I said, God, what is this space supposed to be called? Is it supposed to have a name? And the name Cubby Hole popped in my mind. And I know that the reason was this, that when I was growing up, we lived with my grandparents for a while, and they had this space under their stairs in their basement. It was called the Cubby Hole. And during those years, I was going, just like a lot of us in our younger years, we go through trying times and a lot of adversity, a lot of just heart-wrenching little things that happen that can make your heart feel grieved a little bit. But I remember I would go into that space under the stairs with my friends and my cousins, and we would braid hair and we would laugh. And I always felt better when I left the Cubby Hole than when I went in. And the other thing about the Cubby Hole is my grandma, she really didn't know how to express herself verbally. But what she would do is she would can cherries. And everybody in our family, our extended family, knew that they could go in the Cubby Hole and get a can of cherries. And it was just packed, seal packed with so much love from her. Even though she didn't really know how to express it verbally, when we went into the Cubby Hole, we would get a can of a jar of cherries, and they just warmed our heart, and we could feel the love from her. That's why you see behind me that we decorate here at the Cubby Hole with simulated cans of jarred cherries. So the reason I thought it was so cool to share this story with you today is my special guest. I mean, and just like all the guests that God puts on my heart to invite here on Coffee Chats, he leaves his audiences feeling so much better than if their heart was grieved when they arrived at one of his shows. I know they couldn't help but feel so much better after experiencing him. He is Joey. I'm going to bring him on in a second, but I am so excited to bring on Joey I.L.O. He is the absolute epitome of what the Cubby Hole represents. He leaves people feeling better than when they walked up to him. Joey he's a comedian. He is so talented. If you've ever been to one of his shows, if you haven't, you'll have to. He is a very physical entertainer. He uses his whole body and every bit of expression that he has, and it's no wonder that he is so successful. He has been on so many shows: Last Comic Standing, Thou Shalt Laugh, Dry Bar Comedy, Yes TV, Comedy, the Comedy Channel, and he's a regular on the date night tours. I was joking, and it's just the coolest thing about Joey is that he was literally raised by clowns. It is no wonder that the man is absolutely hilarious. So I'm going to bring him on in a minute, but I thought it would be fun to start with an absolutely hilarious clip of Joey I.L.O.
To Branson, Missouri, just recently, huh? It's been culture shock for me, man. I'm not used to it. It's a small town, you know. I'm a big city driver. I'm not used to coming to four-way stops and having weird conversations. You go. No, you go. No, you go. Please, you go. After you. No, you go. I'm not driving to you go. Just go! Me personally, I have an amnesia temper. I'll get upset and forget why I'm mad in the same sentence. I'll be like, you know what? I'm hungry.
This guy is hilarious.
Get out.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh my gosh, see, he is so incredibly funny. So without further ado, I can't wait. Let me introduce you to my awesome friend, Joey I.L.O. Good morning, Joey.
Get ready for the show. 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 Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh my gosh, I was saying yesterday when I was doing a promo for today that we are here at the Rutz house. We are huge fans of you, Joey. You know that.
Oh, thank you.
Really as our friend, but man, we adore you and your comedy. Now listen, something you guys don't know about Joey here. Look how much energy he has, but I'm going to tell you a little inside information here. He's not feeling so good today, and you can't even tell. We almost, until about
yeah, we almost canceled. There was going to be no show. There was going to be no show. There was going to be no show.
Until about an hour ago. We talked last night, and you called and said, okay, I'm not feeling good at all. And I just said, you know, whatever God has in store, you take care of you. But
the room was spinning.
But look at you. You amaze me. And it's interesting because, I want to correct.
It's called a C-bomb. I'm sorry. It's called a C-bomb. It's a vitamin C bomb. This is what vitamin C does.
A vitamin C bomb. Did you?
Believe me, it's going to wear off.
Okay. You know what? Let's talk fast before you.
It only lasts for an hour. I'm going to go back to the way I regularly look.
If we go past 1 hour, Joey is just he's gonna melt and
right.
fall on the floor.
You gotta make this quick.
Oh my gosh, it's funny. I was just talking about how we are huge fans of our friend Joey. One day I walked in the room and David, he just needed to take a break from everything. And he went to go watch TV, and I walked in and he was watching like one of your comedy videos after another. I'm like, what are you doing? It's like, I'm watching Joey. He was just had you on a loop. It was great. So we love you. We have had you here. You have graced this stage here at the Cubby Hole. Bless some hearts. People are still talking about you.
Yes, I did your dishes. I did laundry. I walked the dog twice. Yeah, it's really weird to perform at a house and then have to do the chores, you know?
Look, we have 6 kids. Everybody chips in. You know what I'm saying? When you're and you did. You guys, I'm going to, Joey, I'm going to post that video. I was actually looking for it yesterday, but Joey and I put together a video about him doing chores here at the Rutz house. And I'm going to make a note to post that because it's hilarious, because you're hilarious as usual. Listen, here's where I want to start. And it's so perfect, honestly. It's not fun that you don't feel good. But one of the first things I wanted to ask you, because you are such a physical entertainer. I mean, you put every piece of you, every bit of energy into your show. what do you do? Like right now, you have to show up and you're doing this call and you don't feel great. What do you do when you have to get on stage? Or you don't feel good, or maybe just mentally you've had an argument or something's going on. What do you do?
Well, I only had two choices. I had a stroke when I was 21 and I had a rare muscle disease. My love was music. It wasn't comedy. But I loved music so much, and the doctor said you'll never get on stage again. And I was just like, when you're faced with two choices, try or die. It's like, I think I'll try. It's kind of like this election that just happened. People are getting mad at you. Only had two choices, this dude and this dude, and you're mad at me because I made a choice. Like, come on. I mean, regardless, give me more choices.
It's not my fault. It's
not my fault. I'm not the choice decider, And that's the mentality I had to have. I either try or I die. I'm not ready to die yet. I was 21. I'm like, nah. And I had a rare muscle disease, and it's called familial periodic paralysis. So I become paralyzed periodically. Wow. And I'll never forget, way before I ever thought about doing comedy, and this is a true story, I was in the doctor's office and he goes, well, your disease is called familial periodic paralysis. And I'm like, well, what's that? And he goes, you become paralyzed periodically. And I kid you not, I wasn't trying to be funny. I looked at him and I said, so I'm a paraplegic with privileges? And he went, and snot came out of his nose and he started laughing. And it was that day that I realized I could be a comedian, because I wasn't even trying to be funny. And he gave me joy when the snot came out. It was just hilarious. He's a doctor. He's trying to be all reserved. And now he can't stop laughing. And I realized, again, I only had two choices, darkness or light. And I was like, man, comedy's powerful. Now, I didn't pursue it right away. I went off to college for radio and television marketing while I was recovering from my stroke, because it was so massive that I had to learn to walk again and talk again. And I had sat in a basement. I had to have glasses because the television was too bright. That's how sensitive I was to light. And this commercial came on for a college, and I was like, I'm going to go there. And my dad was like, you're going to go there, because the doctor said when I got diagnosed at 21, he's like, you're going to have to live with your parents for another 5 years. My dad's like, he's going to go there.
No, let me tell you, he's going to go there.
We got to get rid of this kid. Give me another diagnosis. Let me get another prognosis, doc.
You gotta give me
there's a chance he's moving out next week.
Speaking of choices, you're like, give me another choice. Your dad's like, there's gotta be another choice. He's gotta go there. Give us another diagnosis. There's gotta be something else.
Well, and what's crazy is, so I knew nothing about, I knew about comedy. My dad loved comedy. I used to watch comedy as a kid. I didn't know the techniques. I knew techniques in music. I was a songwriter at the age of 11. I wrote all kinds of songs that made it on albums. And I don't play I don't read. I don't know how to read. So I got kicked out of a jazz class at a young age because I went to a school for gifted kids. It's called Walden. You actually had to be accepted. Wow. It was a really unique school. We didn't have passing time because these are gifted kids. So if you didn't feel like you needed to go to your next class, like you didn't have to, like it was a weird school. Like there was no bells. We could just walk out of class when we wanted to. And because it was one of these schools, it's an alternative school where it's like, he is creative, he will learn. And so, well, the problem with me is I got kicked out of that school because I need a little bit of structure. That's what I tell people. It's important that I'm a Christian. I could be out there stabbing. I need accountability.
Some guardrails. It's like
right. He's special. Right. So. And that's why I realized balance is important. Yes, I'm crazy, but I know how to be myself. I try to be myself off stage. I don't try to be crazy. But the thing is, I am crazy. I like to have fun. Why, and early in my comedy career, I won't say I was nervous, but when you're first starting out, you don't really know the mechanics of what you're doing. Right. And there was a really famous, he's a well-known comic, and I had to open for him. And I got thrusted into this thing. Within my first year, I won the regional search for the next great comic. I was on Last Comic Standing I'd only been doing it for a couple years. But I had the music background. I started making albums. So I understood how to write songs and that, and I was just trying to transfer credits into comedy. So
Right.
I kind of mix all of the talents that God has gifted me with and tried to come up with an original act, something that's just me and something that's fun and
Yeah, Robert G. Lee 2 weeks ago, we were talking about how, God has us on a path. Nothing is wasted, and everything that you experienced, even going to that school for a short period of time, and the things that you picked up, your singing talent, everything, it's all being used in your career. But I have to ask you, Joey, first of all, you were talking about not feeling so good in your home and you have to stay with your parents, and you were joking about your dad and the diagnosis. But I want to jump to this because I'm just trying to imagine your life as growing up and all of your life. Your parents were literally clowns.
Yeah.
And I'm just imagining maybe when you don't feel good and you're laying on the couch, what, I know they weren't clowns every minute of the day, but I'm just imagining them walking up and like honking a horn, or what do they do when you didn't feel good? Like pull a bouquet of flowers out of their.
There's a joke that I wrote about my dad yelling at me in full clown costume, in the sense that, it come back from a parade and it's like, clean your room. I mean, he really did that one day. Like, they're just, both him and my mom are dressed in full costume. It wasn't just one person yelling at me as a clown. Both of them were clowns. And they're like, do what your father said, And I'm like, now, again, this is way before I ever thought about doing comedy. So my life is so unique and different. And so when I got into comedy, they taught us to write about something that no one can steal. And I was like, but here's the weird thing. I didn't want to write about clowns. I didn't think it was funny. I was like most people, like, not that I thought my parents were creepy or anything. It wasn't my thing. I mean, I just got into rap music, so I was more with the cool crowd, and we don't do all that. But I started realizing, man, that's how I grew up.
Yeah,
I love my parents. They're funny, and my dad's really unique. My dad was a cop, a clown, and a Christian, which is crazy because a lot of people like to run away from cops, clowns, and Christians. So I was like, that's hilarious. And so there's conflict in life, and then you have to find the release. You have to find the thing that's funny. And that's what I do. I just look around my family and look for jokes.
And it was all part of it. It was funny because I was thinking of you yesterday. I'm thinking about how most boys grow up and they want to, as they say, like fill their dad's shoes. Like they want to, but I was imagining your dad probably wore, when he was a clown, like a size 40. So that's first of all, a big shoe to have to fill. But then along with that, like now, like, I know that they must have inspired you in comedy because that's what they do. But have you ever found yourself doing the comparison game with what they did or with what you're doing or anything like that?
Well, I mean, it's completely different. I mean, I think, people are all scared of clowns, and I get that. And now it's like a negative tone, like, to be compared to a clown. But that they are the original vaudeville. It's like they're historic in a sense. I mean, clowning was interesting. My dad was like the fall guy, and my mom was the straight person. So they were a comedy team. So once I like I said, it's like I had a little speed course in comedy without even knowing it. And so as I started to pursue some comedic acting and stuff, I knew what my role was. Like I've tried the straight man thing, which I can do, but I'm better at the fall guy. I'm more like my father, and that's what the clowns are, is the pie in the face. That guy's the fall guy. That's the guy who falls down. And so, it's similar, but it's completely different. And I think my dad, it was interesting. He was a police officer, but he always wanted to be a clown. It was like he was a big kid. He wanted to play. He had a very serious job, but he wanted to play. And I think in some ways, I found that balance. Life is tough, and I think people they carry so much, and I went through it. When my dad died, I became bitter, and I had a really bad temper, and like I said, I'm coming out of that, and I'm not prepared to go back to that. It's just like what I said. We only have two choices in life. You got to choose light, not darkness, because I mean, light is bright. Light makes. I mean, to me, laughing is healing. It really is. And it's really weird when I go to places and like I'll perform at a church and they'll bring me up and they'll say, laughter is good like medicine. Tell me about it. I mean, I refused to take medicine. I'm so glad my parents didn't put me on Ritalin. I found out later if they would have, it would have had really bad consequences.
Mhm.
And we live in a society that all, drug them up, we don't want to deal with them,
I'm so glad that you mentioned that too. In truth, there, I'm so glad you mentioned that. I thank you for being vulnerable in that, to express that you really felt the real stuff. I mean, you live a life where you're doing comedy all the time, and then your dad passed away, and you said you felt bitterness and anger. And first of all, thank you for sharing that, because sometimes in our world we feel like we have to stuff that down. But sometimes it's like what popped in my head when you said that, it's like those emotions are like the tripod that holds the light that will end up shining, because we felt that, we dealt with it, but then you can shine a light on it, like you just did. Like you just brought that awareness to people that you felt it, and you have two choices: lightness or darkness. And eventually, after you've traveled through it, you've chosen the light in it. So thank you for sharing that. I know that that had to be hard, but it's good that you experienced that and embraced it.
Yeah, and I chose that early in my life. I decided I'd never smoke and never drink and never do drugs. Even when I used to rap, I worked clean. When I got into comedy, I worked clean, and I've never compromised that. And in so many ways, it was a saving. It was a saving grace, I didn't know that in my disease, I have a deficiency to alcohol. And the doctor said, if you ever would have got drunk, you would have went into an alcoholic coma and you would have never came out. And then I found out that I was allergic to THC. I was put on a medicine called Diamox, and THC is weed. If I ever would have smoked weed in my life,
Wow.
my glands would have swelled up and I would have choked to death, the doctor said.
my
I
goodness.
never would have came out of that. And so I think of my choices have protected me from, and that's what's so crazy. I still have been told, you'll never perform again. You'll never be on stage again. If you don't work for us, you'll never be on stage. I've been told that in so many different times. And I think that's where my faith comes in. It's like all things are possible.
Great. So
I'm not ready to, again, just like when I was young, I'm not ready to die. I know that God has a purpose for me. He has so much more. And then when he is ready to take me, he'll take me, but every time you step out in faith, it strengthens you.
Mm-hmm.
Because you overcome things, and then you realize, hey man, I overcome it.
Yeah.
I overcame what they said I couldn't do. I'll be honest, I watched my Dry Bar special, and I was like, during this COVID time, and I was like, man, I'm really out of shape, and I had tried to diet, and my wife's like, oh, you try things and then you just go back to, and I was so determined with the downtime. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna stick to it. And I've lost 28 pounds.
Oh, good for you.
I went on the keto diet, and it really helped me a lot. And the keto is probably not for everybody, but for my situation, I had fatty liver disease.
Yeah.
I was in really bad shape, and I feel better. I mean, I got sick yesterday, but that was the first time I got sick since September 4th.
Yeah.
So
we were talking this morning about how you're chugging the water, and that's awesome. You look great. I can tell that you're feeling better, and that's so great. I love that you have that happening for you in your life right now. And like you said, we have two choices, and you chose the better, to do something for yourself because you're worth it. One of the things I wanted to ask you, speaking of you using this downtime to take care of your health and to really focus on your health, what I wanted to ask you, I ask a lot of people that come on that are comedians in a quarantine, where do you find the humor, or what have you learned, or how do you find the funny in the middle of a quarantine, or did you?
Well, like with me, it's all about emotion. Whatever emotion you can create with your crowd. Again, like I said, there's conflict and then there's release. Yeah. So a lot of times I write about stuff that just frustrates me. But I put it in a vehicle where people can relate to it, because that's the key. If you give away too soon, and that's what I love about comedy. I'm a big boxing fan, so I have to lead you this way. It's called misdirecting, and then I hit you. Yeah. If I go to throw a punch and you can see it coming, it's not going to connect with the crowd. It's not funny. Boom. Or you get this reaction. Oh, that means I knew where you were going with that.
Right.
You can package an idea, lead them this way. Like, we're working on a new bit. I mean, it's kind of, I won't say it's hacky. I mean, you've heard the premise before where people say, back in my day, my grandfather used to do that. And I used to think, I'll never have a back in my day speech. We got the internet, even though it's dial up and it was the 90s and it took forever to load, kind of like the computer I have right now. But the point is, I'm like, what is my what is my back in my day speech going to be? And finally, after having kids with the phones and stuff, I know what it's going to be. Back in my day, we used to have this thing called the conversation, where we would look at you and they would look at us, and words would come out and we would respond with more words.
Yeah.
Back in my day, we had a personality. You wouldn't know what that is. So, so those two lines are from the heart. I mean, it's
From the heart.
It's not.
Yeah.
I'm just using an example. I still got to fine tune it or whatever. But the
I know.
point is,
So true.
that's true, and frustrates the junk out of me.
Yeah.
So instead of getting upset about it, I need to write it in a joke so that I can get, and it's great because then I get to perform it every night and get that off my chest every night. And then people are laughing and it's making me money. I mean, it's a win. You know.
You're finding it. You're finding it in the middle of all of it. And you can say, back in my day, I was a comedian in the middle of a very not funny pandemic. I mean,
Back in my day, we used to be able to touch people. My day speech is coming. It's going to be weird.
Yeah, there's nothing they're going to say that's going to trump that. There's no way, because we got it locked in with that. Especially comedians that, like yourself, you're full time. I doing comedy, and that's the income. And it's like, whoa, wow.
Definitely.
It is a crazy situation. Look what I have here.
Look at that.
It's usually right behind me on the wall, Joey I.L.O. It was so great to have you here. We loved having you. I wanted to transition into the other thing that I'm so excited to talk to you about, and that is being true to the authentic version of you, the one that God made you, us, every person to be. And sometimes it takes a while to figure out what that thing is, or who is that authentic version, especially for young people, because a lot of times young people are so busy trying to be somebody else. But I was just wondering if you had a pivotal moment that you can remember in your childhood or teenage years, that where you started to see, like, the cracking of the shell of who Joey really was, where you started to see who you were, and then you obviously you stayed true to your style and your talents. But when did you realize who you were and what you were made of, your authentic you?
Wow, the fact that I was going into really hard situations, and just having that belief that, like, oh, this kid, you can never do this, and then I'd go into a situation and walk out with a standing ovation, like, what in the world? Just believing, like, no. And it's just kind of how I feel about today. There are good people. And you're being told, oh, there's not good people. There's great people out there. There's a great world out there. And I just didn't believe negative, I believe that I want to look for the good in others. And that's why I love comedy, because I get to travel, you know? I meet young people. It's like, hey, where have you ever been before? Nowhere, just this city. Like, man, then you have a small mind, because the world is so much bigger than the little city that you live in.
Right. Yeah.
And so how are you supposed to know what's outside your city? You've never been outside your city. And so I just always knew that there was better. You realize there's better out there.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it's scary right now with the isolation.
Right. Yeah.
You start to think, oh, there's nothing ever going to be good. Well, I know it looks like that because that's all you see right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I realize there's something better for us. And we have to try for the better. You have to raise the bar high and say, I want to overcome. I don't want to stay in the dark my whole life. So I think at a young age, I just realized, and I had great parents that just encouraged me to be better than what I think I could be, And I was in special education, and it was because of the disease. It's not because I was I didn't know I had a rare disease, and so I was labeled. So I was used to being labeled my whole life, like, oh, he's special and he's this. And there's a joke I wrote where I said, the school is like a factory, and the teachers are underpaid and overworked. They're the factory workers. And the kids, like myself, are coming down on the conveyor belt. And anytime the factory worker, which is the teacher, sees a scratch and dent or a kid they can't figure out, they take them off the belt and they put them in the special box. And that's what happened to me. And that's it. It's funny. I creatively, but I'm using an analogy. But
I love that analogy.
There's so much truth there. It's like I don't want to spend time with this person. I don't, we don't got time for that. I'm and again, I didn't know I had a rare disease, so that was causing a lot of my delays in learning that. So once I found out what was going on, it was a long recovery too. Like I said, I had to learn to walk again and talk again. But then I started to get more encouragement, like, hey man, I can overcome this. That's why it's funny with COVID, especially where I live, because we get a lot of World War II veterans that are still alive. I mean, try telling somebody to be scared of COVID when they've been shot like 3 times in World War II.
I've heard a lot of stories about older people. They're like, we got this. There's so much. What did you say?
And that was my granddad. COVID, what is that, a scarf?
Well, Joey, I'm imagining you, and I wrote down when you were talking about the school for gifted children, I wrote down the word definition under that, because what struck me when you were talking about that is, who writes the definition of gifted, and it's, you are so gifted and not only gifted, but so incredibly unique. So I'm trying to imagine you, even when you're talking about the conveyor belt in school. By the way, I love that metaphor. That's awesome. If you didn't fit in the mold when you were a child, I mean, you really didn't I'm just imagining you being you. Like, if you have a conversation with Joey, it would go from being serious to all of a sudden he's like what he was doing a minute ago. It's like, you don't stop being you. And I am so thankful that the world gets to experience you and you didn't snuff that out. So what about those moments when you were, you were a child? Did you, is there a piece of you that said, I have to hang on? I'm just imagining in class, you being Joey. Like, there's two.
I wasn't very good in school. Like, I'd walk into this class and the teacher already had my blue slip written up for why I should leave. Like, I was like, thank you. Like, and it wasn't even confrontational. It was just like, we don't want to deal with you today. I'm like, thank you. Appreciate that. And I'll be honest with you. I actually was a class clown for a lot of reasons. Because I was having a hard time learning. I didn't want to be bullied. I went to an inner city school and it was no joke. There was a lot of GD folks. That's a certain gang. It was Vice Lords. It was Latin Kings. I mean, I felt like I was in prison. I remember I was in basketball class in gym and this kid had killed someone and he's only 17 years old. And he's in my gym class because back then they didn't try him as an adult. He was a minor when he committed the crime. I stole the ball from him because we were playing basketball. He got so upset. He tried stabbing me in the locker room. And it was kind of like, it was so weird because, like I said, I started rapping at a young age. And I remember this one kid, he couldn't stand me and he wanted to beat me up. But then he found out I rapped. And I'll never forget, he came up and he goes, and he heard me rap. He goes, hey, you're really good at rapping, so I'm not going to beat you up today.
Wow.
Much respect. I was like, oh, great. So I'm like, man, I'm literally in prison. And as long as I can use my talents to distract these psycho people, I can live. I mean, so for me, that's really how my character came about. But the crazy thing is, once I had the stroke and I was weak, I set the bar when I became a comedian to be a hyper comic. And I remember I was at a club and the owner, it was a Joke Joint Comedy Club. And the owner is a good friend of mine. And all the Minnesota, I was in Minnesota. I was in the Minnesota comedy scene. And they're more dry. Minnesota's very dry. So when they tell their jokes, they stand still and they're very, I mean, I ain't going to lie. Sometimes you'll hear my accent change. Like, this is my corporate accent. I don't know. Howdy. Like, I'm trying not to rock the boat. Like, I'm not trying to be like you. I'm just trying to get a job.
Right. That's all I'm trying to do. Bear with me here.
Right.
Oh my gosh. I knew my face was going to hurt just doing this coffee chat with you. Like, one minute we're talking, the next minute I'm just cracking up at you. You make me laugh all the time. That is hilarious.
One day, I decided that I wanted to be like these other guys. I wanted... because they were getting laughs, being dry. And it was crazy. I didn't even think they were funny, but the crowd did. And I was sick of them not liking me. So I was like, maybe I'll get up there and I'll sit on the stool and I'll be real slow. And I'll never forget, the owner comes up to me after my set and he goes, if you ever don't do Joey and don't do the energy, I will never let you on that stage again. Don't ever do that. He's like, be you, be the crazy stuff that you are you. And people are going to like that. So that's the day I realized, okay, let me do this. So
is that when that light bulb went off? That because I know especially there's a lot of comedians, veteran comedians, new comedians that watch this show, and just anybody really that's looking for their authentic version of themselves. It sounds like it was right around then where you went, okay, my voice. This is my voice. This is what I need to use. This is the authentic me. Especially what a confirmation when somebody says, "Don't you ever not."
Right. Well, it was crazy because I went to church in Minnesota, and my pastor had given a message before we moved here. Well, there's a couple of things he said that were just amazing. He said, "Be wary of those who do things for you so they can have power over you." I was like, "What? That is amazing." That helps me in the industry.
We learn that hard way sometimes.
Yes. But there was another thing he talked about. It was around Christmas time he gave the message, and he was talking about people wonder what gift they have. The gift that they have is the gift that people call them about.
Mm-hmm.
So for instance, like there's so many people that want other people's gifts. So they want the singing gift, but we all know they can't sing, but they're fixated on that. Yeah. Like, I got to be the singer. And it's like, bro, you're not.
We've seen American Idol. We've seen the American Idol audition.
Right. Yeah. Well, you've heard people in church like, I've been called to sing. Really? I haven't been called to listen. So please stop singing. Have you heard yourself? Hang up. I'm sorry.
Speaking of church, I have to remind myself to play your drive-by video at the end about you going to your wife's church. I got a big note here that says video. Don't forget that because it's so funny. I mean, there's nothing that you do that isn't funny. But okay, so yeah, back to that. People finding their authentic voice and just sticking with it.
What was I talking about? I forgot.
You were talking about when you realized that.
So he was talking about. So my pastor, he was talking about people call you and they're like, "Hey, will you cut my hair? You're really good at cutting hair." I'll never forget this. This message had a big impact on me. It was like, "Hey, you're really good at cutting hair," and the person's like, "Nah, I don't want to cut hair. I want to go sing." And it was like, no, you need to cut hair. I mean, so how many times in our lives have we, and people ask me, well, how do you come up with your jokes? I just become more sensitive to listening. I go where other people aren't going. I'm listening for ideas. Like I said, comedy's all around us. But if you're not sensitive to hear that, if you're not sensitive to find the funny around you, then you're missing out on opportunities. So once you realize, hey, this is what I'm good at, and people are telling you, no, dude, you got a gift in that. Yeah. Man, go after that because tons of doors are going to open. Now, if one person says it and it's your mom, get another opinion.
Always seek another opinion when it's
right. Because when I started comedy, I would never and that was another thing. I never let my family come to my shows. Well, they couldn't. I lived in Minnesota, but I wasn't bringing my friends because I wanted real criticism back.
Right.
I didn't want to be like, you are so great. What did I talk about? I don't remember.
Yeah.
They're not really giving you. They're giving you feedback because they love you.
Right.
And
yeah.
I'm saying get the real feedback. Like I to be honest with you, I couldn't stand when my mom would come to my shows because it would be like, I'd ask her afterwards, so Mom, what'd you think of my comedy? She'd be like, I thought your hair looked so nice. You know what I didn't like is you do have a little bit of a bald spot coming in. And when that light hits it, you look like you need to get some hair for men. I'm like, Mom, we're talking about jokes here. I don't even know what that is.
Oh my God.
I learned right away. I'm not going to get a lot out of her when it comes to criticism. And you gotta be real with yourself. You got to hear what people are saying and then just take that chance and go after it. I mean, I didn't even like comedy as far as performing went. Music was my first love.
Right.
But after my stroke, I physically couldn't do it.
Right.
So it was almost like God opened the door. They always say, he always says in about he won't put anything on you that you can't bear. And I feel like maybe the music was too much for me to bear physically. Right. And he opened up a door and said, no, you're not done yet, but I'm going to make it a little easier for you. And you'll still be able to do what you want to do. So it worked out. you know?
Yeah. Was there ever a moment, because again, you are so physical in your comedy and you are just Joey, like you're a one of a kind. Was there ever a moment where somebody said the opposite? They said, don't, you know, like even in your earlier years where there could have been a fork in the road where you didn't choose to do that, where they said, no, you can't do that, or you can't.
Oh, definitely. All the time. I mean, I was in the Minnesota comedy scene. And so one of the clubs that I wish would have booked me, you know, but they, you know, and I understand, you know, the clubs are like, you see, I was in the music industry. So I use the analogy that the clubs are a lot like a record company.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking for a particular artist. They like their music to sound a certain way. And that was true of this particular comedy club. Now, if you got work on this club, you instantly would have been on not Leno, you would have been on Letterman for sure. Letterman, you would have been on Jimmy Fallon.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that they, you know, there was a girl who worked at the club that liked me, and she was putting my name on the open mic list. And then the owner found out. She ended up being let go. And I don't know if it was because of me. If it was because of me, I'd feel really bad. But the point is, he didn't really like me. And it didn't come till Last Comic Standing. Then I made it out of the actual line. And I remember when they asked me, it was Ant, and they said, what's your home club? And I said, this is my home club. Mm-hmm. And it's not, when you say it's your home club, so they think that I am part of the label, so to say. And so they let me through to the next round. Well, he comes up to me in the bar and he goes, before the taping of the semifinals, he's like, why did you say that this is your home club? This isn't your home club. You know, so-and-so is upset, the owner. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, this is where I go. I can't help it if he doesn't accept me. And I remember that the Ant goes, dude, don't let me down tonight. You better be funny. Mm-hmm. And it was, I get off the stage, and the new guy that replaced the girl that they let go, they used to put me up, he came up to me one time. And all those years that I was going there, this is the only time he would come up to me and go, bro, that was a good set. Mm-hmm. You know, yeah. But they wouldn't put me up. I'd go sign up every week and I'd never get up. But here's the thing. When I first started in that club, I was told, if you don't work for this club, you'll never work. And I started thinking, you're trying to tell me that this one place controls my future? Mm-hmm.
It's a good point.
That's what small-minded people think, that, you know, and that's what the devil wants you to think, is that it's over and that there's no hope.
Yeah.
And people don't understand, when they do that to me, they put me back in the hospital when I'm talking to that doctor, and they're saying, there's no hope for you. Right. And I can look back over my life and say, well, I've been gone for over 13, 14, 15 years. So obviously what you're saying, I'm not saying you don't know what you're talking about,
right?
But I know that there's a way, and there's something bigger in store for me.
Wow. You just touched on something so huge, Joey. Thank you so much for sharing that. You just touched on the idea. And if anybody watching this just speaks to you, just grab it and keep it, because what you just referred to are triggers. You just referred to the fact that he said something to you and it triggered you, and it can propel you, send you into a trajectory of going forward or just
right.
fetal.
Right. There's good triggers and bad triggers. Make sure you're triggered to go forward, not backwards, because you'll never accomplish anything in life being defeated, being the victim, being, you know, woe is me. I mean, they're just going to step over your body and keep going. I mean, you got to get up, you got to keep moving, you know. And it is interesting. Like, you know, COVID has hit my neighborhood. It hit my family. I don't know if I have it. I don't know. I don't know. I have a lot of stuff, so I don't know. But what I find interesting, and all the people that have had it that I've talked to, is they said, when I kept moving, I felt better. Okay. It reminds me of when someone gets shot and they say, stay with me, keep your eyes open. Why do they say that? Because if the person closes their eyes, they'll close their eyes forever.
Mm-hmm. Just hang in.
So you got to keep moving.
Right.
You got to keep dreaming. You got to keep setting goals. Yeah. It's not over, you know. It is over if you say it's over. I mean, the power is in the tongue, and I've used that tongue. Yeah. I've been bitter. I've been angry, and all that did was cut people that I loved, and it causes scars. And so I realized I needed to go back to what got me here in the first place, and that's just going forward.
And I love that you just mentioned your faith too. I mean, we all stumble and fall. First of all, wait, the other point I wanted to make is it's really cool having comedians on this show because we do get to the heart of the matter of life and stories and the things that trigger us and inspire us. So it's really cool to see the other side of comedians because especially watching you, you're so physical, you're just on, but it's really cool to see the other side and what propels you. We were just talking about, possibly going backward. And I wanted to say that I give you so much credit because I do know you as a friend and a lot of the things that go on in your life. And you have a beautiful family, a wife and 2 kids and juggling all of that. First question I did want to ask you is, are you joking all the time with your kid? Like, is it like?
No. I mean, I said it earlier. Like when I'm off stage, I'm just me,
Oh yeah.
But the thing is, I have gears. It's kind of like we talked about with the illness and how do you turn it on?
Right.
Like I said, I set that bar. It's like I've memorized my act. I know what my act is, and no matter how I feel, boom, I got to be up here.
Right.
And there's been times I've gotten on the plane. I've had to be wheelchaired off the plane after shows. We were on tour and this other comic I was touring with, I think he wanted my spot. I mean, I know he wanted my spot. We were vying for a spot. Right. And I started bleeding in my nose and we're on a plane and we have a show that night in Buffalo, New York. And I go to the back of the plane. I get into the bathroom and blood is coming out of my mouth, my nose. It's splatting all over the mirror. I'm using all of the tissue in the bathroom and they're knocking on the door. Sir, you need to go back to your seat. Okay, I'm working on it.
There's blood. And
I know that if they see blood, anybody sees blood, they're going to put me in a hazmat suit. I'm done, right?
There's got to be a line where you don't really have to go back to your seat. Like, oh no, that falls under the category of you just stay there and hold on tight because you're bleeding everywhere.
Right. Well, when I was a kid, I had my nose cauterized 3 times, and I believe that it's tied to my illness. So, cauterize your nose. Basically, what they're doing is they're soldering your nose, and so that proves that wasn't a hole that's tied to something. And so my illness is stress induced. So one of the things that happens is sometimes I'll start bleeding. I mean, it's happened to me on stage. And what do you do? Well, what do? You just get through it somehow, That
was the questions I was going to ask you. Well, first of all, here you are. This is what I'm saying, you guys. It's so cool the behind the scenes of a comedian's life. It's not what you see all the time. Here you're bleeding in an airplane with your
right. So
worse, and now you got to go do a show, and you're competing for a spot. What?
Right. And listen to this: the story's not over. So what? The crazy thing is, I know there's Vaseline, and because I'm a boxing fan, and I had a problem with the and one of the reasons why it's bleeding is we're coming out of Canada in February. I mean, it's so dry that I think that's another. I mean, I haven't slept, I haven't eaten right, so obviously my disease is it's getting bad. And this isn't like a little nosebleed. This is like gushing, right? And I'm doing pressure points on it, and they're just knocking on the door, and I'm thinking, I got to get to that Vaseline, but it's back at my chair, and the only person who can get it is the comic that I'm traveling with, but he doesn't know what's going on. So I walk down the aisle with my head tilted.
Nothing's going on here. Nothing's
like I'm looking at the ceiling, and I kid you not, the stewardess is behind. She goes, "What are you looking at, sir?" "Oh, it's just looking at the ceiling. It's just amazing, the material you guys use."
I'm just guessing. You're really lucky to work on a plane. People are probably thinking, did he stick one of those airline peanuts up his nose? Like, what's going on?
No, they don't know. They know I'm acting weird, right? Because I could get tased at this point. I'm on an airplane. I mean,
that you're into the Tanqueray. You hit the alcohol bin while you're in the bathroom.
I get up to the comedian and I go, "Hey, bro, can you hand me my bag?" And he goes, "Get it yourself." And I'm like, I know if I go like this, blood's gonna come out. And I'm like, "Hey, why don't you get it?" And he goes, "Hey, why don't you get it?" Because he's the comedian. So he's joking with me. And I'm like, "No, seriously, bro. If you don't get it, I'm gonna punch you in the face." And he goes,
I'm laughing because I'm imagining you like looking down.
And I have to be careful with my conversation because everybody around us is now listening. And I just, "Get it. Will you get it?" Okay. So he gets it. He gives it to me. I turn around and the stewardess goes, "You need to go sit down." "Oh yeah, real quick, I forgot something in the bathroom. I just gotta grab." She goes, "Sir." And so I go, I put the Vaseline in. I'm able to like stop it good enough. I mean, it took me like 35 minutes to get this thing. And then because I went back to my seat, I forgot I still had, I didn't wash my hand. I had blood on my hand. And the lady looks over and she sees, and all of a sudden the stewardess comes up and goes, "Is everything all right over here?" And I go, "Oh yeah, it's great."
Nothing to see here. Everything's fine. We're fine. I'm fine.
But because I've lost so much blood,
Oh my gosh.
because I lost some, I'm starting to get weak and my legs are starting to go out of me. And I know I'm not going to be able to walk very good because that's what happens with my illness. I get weak and then my muscles start to go out. And so I say to the guy sitting next to me, I go, "Dude, you got to help me. Will you go get my bags?" Because I'm so weak. I can't even lift my own bags at this point. And so I wait for everybody to get off the plane. And the steward is like, "Hey, are you sure what's going on?" I'm, "Oh, nothing. Everything's fine. I haven't slept. We're on a tour. Everything's fine." And I get to the top of the thing. I even leave my bags. He gets my bags. I get to the top and they're waiting for me. Like not TSA,
Right.
but the representative. And she's like, "Hey, why don't you come over here?" And I'm thinking, oh, they're going to call the ambulance and they're going to take me to the hospital and I'm going to miss my show tonight. And really all I needed was something to eat because my blood sugars were real low. And I'm like the opposite of a diabetic.
Right.
When I don't eat and I don't sleep right, I just get weak. And I say to her, I go, "Well, I've been on this tour and I haven't eaten." And she goes and gives me $80 in food vouchers, one for me and one for my partner, and goes, "Well, go get some," and then calls the wheelchair and they wheelchaired me out. But then the promoter was coming to pick me up. So I got out of the wheelchair because I didn't want him to see me in a wheelchair because then he would think I couldn't perform.
Right.
And as we're waiting there at the baggage claim and I get out of the wheelchair, the comic I'm traveling with goes, "Dude, why don't you retire, man? Like, dude, this isn't good. This isn't healthy." I'm like, "Tell me about it. I've been going through this for the last 15 years. Sorry, you just found out." But
And by the way, thank you for handing me my Vaseline or like helping me out.
and I'm not just making this up. We went to that show that night. We went to that, and I don't want to sound boastful or any of that. I'm just telling you what happened. We go to the show that night. The guy does okay. I just got this gust of energy and got a standing ovation. The line was out the door. I sold every DVD I came with.
Wow.
And it was like, that is what I'm talking. It isn't the accomplishment of that.
Right.
It's the fact of what I went through. At any moment, I could say to myself, "There's no way. You're not going to be able to do it. You're not going to be able to perform. You're bleeding. You haven't slept." But it's just that voice in my head that says all things are possible if you believe.
Yeah. And I'm so, even though you guys were vying for the same spot, it's so cool that he was with you to be able to get that for you. And when you look back, it all just fits together. Yes, all things are possible. I love that you're sharing that. And I want to talk about your faith in all of these things in a moment, but I just want to share a couple of comments here. June Colson, our friend from the Christian Comedy Association, says, "Authentic people like you, Joey, set people at ease and free to be just themselves as well. Meeting you at he was a new comic when he met you at CCA, and I know that you were."
Yeah, I think she met me. I was in the I had an episode because I was setting up the rooms and stuff, and I'm a type of person which once I start doing something, I have a hard time stopping, and I worked myself so hard that I got really ill in the lobby of the hotel, and she was talking to me that morning, and I had to be walked to my room. Like it was so crazy.
No, you guys. This is what's so fascinating. You go and I'm just now I've jumped to imagining the audience that night. You got a standing ovation. They had, unless you made it a quick, you quickly wrote a joke about it and talked about it, but here you were on a plane, gushing blood in a wheelchair, blood on your hands.
Right.
And you're out there.
Really gross.
Imagining they had no idea, unless you told them, they had no idea. No idea.
Well, it's the same thing with the dry bar set. I mean, you're going to show that video, but my daughter has autism and she gets a little depressed when I go out of town if she doesn't know where I'm at. So I always spend time with her. And I decided to do whatever she wants to do. And I said, "What do you want to do, honey, before I go out on my dry bar set. And she goes, I want to go roller skating. So I'm roller skating. And at the end, I'm the whole time I'm thinking, don't fall, don't fall, don't fall. And some kid comes off some random kid I don't know, comes flying off the rink, bumps into me. I'm swinging my arms back. I know I'm going to fall. And I'm thinking, don't hurt your legs because, I'm a big mover down. I move my legs and, in my act. And so at the last moment, I stick my arm out and all 265 pounds land on my elbow and my arm. I tear my ligament in my thumb. I don't have time to go to the doctor. I self-wrap it.
Wasn't your arm like you were going to do dry bar and your arm is like in a...
Dude, I wanted to cancel. I was in so much pain. I wanted so hard to cancel, but I knew that this was a once in a lifetime opportunity to do dry bar. And right. I was the heaviest I'd ever been. I was really out of shape. And one of the reasons why a lot of trolls on YouTube were saying stuff like, look how he's sweating and look, his neck is purple. My body was in shock. I mean, the whole left side, I had a cast on, but I had a sleeve on my hand because this was torn. And so I couldn't grip. So one of the problems, I sat up in the Marriott the night before the recording and I couldn't hold the water bottle. It kept dropping. And so I was going to have to like compensate with this hand. I'm like, how am I going to hold the microphone? And I'm left-handed. And this is my left hand. I'm like, how am I going to be able to do this? And so I came up with a different way of performing. And I every time it would get hard, I'd come over and you'll watch the clip and you'll see me go like this. What I'm doing is I'm holding my hand together. After we got done with the first set, my thumb and my hand had turned purple and they had to put makeup on it just to cover it. And you did 2 sets that night. You did your first set and your second set. I had flown in the night before. And all the guys that record their first set, they were either nervous or they were too fast. And they always did better on their second set. And I had said to myself, I got to do good on my first set because I don't know if I have energy to do that again. Second set. The dry bar set that you see, 85% of that is my first set. Wow. So that means I did 30 minutes, 35 minutes, boom, in utter pain. When I got off, I had to put an ice pack all on my arm and this and here. And they came up to me and was like, hey, you don't have to be physical on this second set. And I was like, thank you, because I literally didn't have anything left. And when I got home, I had to be wheelchaired off that plane too.
I'm showing your dry bar, a clip from your dry bar special at the end. And so you were telling me that we were talking about, having to have somebody hand you the microphone, but I didn't realize it was from the set. So I'm going to watch it even closer now
Well, I'll tell you the part. I'll tell you the part that scared me the most. Which are you showing the cardio Catholic church bit?
Yeah, yes. Uh-huh.
Okay. So what scared me the most was that you got to understand, there was times I would extend this arm. It was just the adrenaline. And I'd be like, ooh.
We actually, over coffee this morning, we had 3 of our girls up there and David. We were having coffee together and I was uploading your video. I'm like, you guys, let's just take a minute and we got to watch Joey. So I turned the computer on. We all watched it. I didn't notice anything.
Okay, so the part that scared me the most, if I would have just lost my balance, everybody would have seen. So the part where I say, put down the kneeler, and you got to put this leg down, and you got to put this leg down. Now, when I did that, I'm off balance, and I came really close to tipping over. And if I would have tipped over, I would have landed on that arm, and I wouldn't have been able to get up. You would have had to come and pull me up. So I took a huge risk of taking this down, down. And it looks like I'm acting like I'm making it hard because I masked it in the bit, because I'm like, I had to put this knee down, but I really was struggling to get down on the ground and then get back up, God. And I mean, the fact that it didn't tip over is just, I'm so glad. But yeah, that's the behind the scenes stuff you didn't know. That's
a blessing in itself. I want to end with 3 more quick questions.
Yes.
For you. One is, speaking of that, you didn't tumble over, but have you ever had either an incredibly a special moment on stage that just is the front of your mind, or have you ever had an embarrassing moment that you just you couldn't have seen it coming that stands out? Either of those?
Yeah, I'm sure if I thought about that more, I'd have a lot more. But just randomly coming up with something, I would say it's the kids. You know, like there's a video on YouTube of this little boy who comes after my show, and he wants to battle dance me. We're in the lobby, and he's moving his feet around, and so I decided to like do a battle dance to him.
Oh my
And
God.
his parents said that just made his day. He just loved that. And you know, I've had a lot of people like, you know, my husband just died or my wife just died, and I haven't laughed in months or years. And you just brought so much joy. I mean, I've been through a lot of pain, so to be able to give back in that way, not only do I understand what that person's going through, I would never say that to them because I know what that's like. People used to say, "Oh, I know what you're going through with your familiar periodic paralysis." Oh, you do? But
Really?
you're right. But you know,
word of that diagnosis familiar? Because I thought
familial.
I
It's
thought
the Spanish word for family.
okay, yeah, I was like, well, it couldn't mean that you're paralyzed in your tracks when you're around family, but then you know you were raised by clowns. Maybe it's because you just like, oh, they're wow, I don't even know I don't even know what to say. But anyway,
Right.
no, that is
No,
beautiful.
yeah. My father, when he was a clown, he used to do shows for Ronald McDonald House.
Right.
And my dad really was like a Patch Adams, except he wasn't a doctor. He was a police officer. So he wanted to be deputy friendly, but he lost the job to another guy. And instead of being upset, he actually told that guy how to do his job. That guy was coming to my dad for ideas, and he doesn't even realize how bad my dad wanted that job. But instead of my dad being jealous or upset, he actually coached him. And I remember when my father passed away, that guy got up at my dad's funeral and said, "I was so blown away that I was underqualified. This guy was overqualified. He was way better than I could have ever been. And instead of him being jealous of me, he actually coached me, and he made me a better deputy friendly than I could have ever imagined. And I could have never done that without him." And I remember when my father passed away, you would have thought JFK just died because he had like a military salute because my dad was a Vietnam vet, and he had a police. He had like 10 different counties showed up to you know, and I just felt the legacy that my father had left me in the sense that you know, don't be concerned about the little things of fame and all of that. You know, come from the heart. You know, be you. Do things out of love, and so I'm just blessed to have had you know, somebody who also showed me the way. You know,
Wow.
so my cover, I have clown shoes on my cover, and those are my dad's actual clown shoes. So, and I made that cover so that my kids will know. You know, and I made that joke. Like that was a joke between me and my dad. It was a hacky joke, but it was. I always wanted to follow in your footsteps, Dad. But I got to tell you, those are some big shoes to fill. And but that is the. Every time I look at that, I go, "Wow, we've come such a long way." And so it's really special.
Wow. You were raised by parents who are technically, you know, professionally clowns, but they taught you some good stuff. It's literally no joke. It's good
Well,
stuff.
when I think of the clowns, I don't think of clowns. I think of people who don't like clowns, and it's like, why? Clowns are supposed to make you laugh.
Yeah.
You know, cops are supposed to protect you, and they're not supposed to beat you. And Christians are supposed to love; they're not supposed to judge. And I'm just glad I had a father who was an example, not a stereotype. And so that's the bigger meaning behind my album. It's like it was so funny because people didn't want to buy my DVD because it had clowns on it. I'm like, okay, so you're gonna basically not buy my DVD, and there's no clowns on the DVD. It's just the cover. So you're not gonna like me because of what's on it, you know. And so just encouraging people not to judge a book by its cover. That there's so much more to the story behind people's lives, and we miss out on getting to know people sometimes because we prejudge them. You know, be open and be open-minded and be willing to learn. You know.
I want to end on faith, but sandwiched in between the embarrassing moments and the things you just talked about, and then talking about faith at the end. And then I'm going to let you go because I'm going to let you go before your vitamin C bomb wears off, Joey. You're just going to
It's wearing off. It really is. I only got so much fever. I'm sweating at this point. The fever's coming back. Let's go.
Too quick.
My voice is getting raspy. I'm getting a frog in here. See the quality? See the quality? It is wearing off.
Okay, quick.
Oh, there goes the cough. It's in my chest.
Okay, I'm gonna wrap.
The COVID's coming out.
Okay, quick point. A lot of kids struggle. So many kids struggle. And with children, their brains are still forming. They're like physically still forming. Their heart, their mind, their soul, everything is still forming in them. And there's so many kids just want to give up because they don't feel like they fit in the world because of who they are. What advice could you give to that young person? And I know that this advice will, seep over to adults as well, but just to young people, like you were just talking about, what would you say to them?
Look at the weird things that the people, the things that people make fun of you. Hurt people. Jealous people hurt people. Envious people hurt people with their words. It was funny how we talked about that earlier about how people will come up to you and give you a compliment. That's how you should know where your gift is going. Sometimes if someone's hating on you, that's also a compliment because they don't want you to be, they want to stop you. I learned that when I moved to Branson. It was like, be good, just don't be better than me. And I learned that in comedy too. There was certain comics that were scared of me. They didn't want me on the same show. They don't want to have to follow me. Right. And so sometimes people will say things to discourage you because there's a reason for it. And don't doubt yourself. And sometimes you want to go where everybody else doesn't go. So if you have something unique about you, find where that unique piece fits. Find something that you love to do, because if you ain't doing something, you're not going to be living for, you're not going to be able to have the thing to keep you excited. Like the gifts of music, the gifts of comedy, it keeps me, like when I was going through the tragedies in my life, I could get back doing what I always knew to do. Right. And it would give me some joy while I'm isolated. I found something that can make me happy and motivate me to go forward. So, whatever you're unique at, or whatever someone says is ridiculous. I mean, I use all the ridiculous stuff on stage. Like
that's
I use it as bullets.
That is a great quote from you. I use all of the, and even in quotes, the ridiculous. The ridiculous is it's just like the word gifted. The definition varies from person to person and situation to situation. So hang on to your ridiculous, because it might be, ridiculous and who you are is who you are. That's might be the authentic version of you that you might be just pushing under the rug, and nobody will ever see it. So thank you for that, Joey. And I want to end. I can tell your voice is your voice is you're speaking softer. You're wearing down. So it's the perfect time to ask you this.
Time for sleep. Yeah, time. What is it? 11? Yeah, time to go.
So the last I wanted to end on is you mentioned faith. You alluded to faith, but just to cap it here at the end, talking about your faith and going through everything in your life, leading you to where you are, just every bit of where God played a role in obviously in all of it, but just to touch on that.
Well, at a young age, my dad encouraged me to seek God. He always would tell me, I remember he was the deacon of the church. So his job was to lock up, and there was an ice cream social going on downstairs. And I don't know. I don't know why I felt conviction this night. I was only 5 years old. I don't know if I was drawing outside the lines. I don't know what I was doing wrong, but I felt a tug, and I went down to the altar and prayed. And in the back of my 5-year-old mind, I'm 5 years old, and I remember this. I'm giving my life to God at the altar, and I'm struggling with wanting to go downstairs for the ice cream social. I'm like, there's ice cream down there. And I continue to... I'm like, all my friends are eating ice cream cones. What am I doing with my life?
Right.
And I continue to pray and seek God. And all of a sudden, all the lights turned off, and I felt a presence come from behind me. And it was my dad. And my dad was the type of guy where when he's ready to go, you better be in the car. Right. But he backed off and he sat behind me. And about 3 o'clock in the morning, I didn't even know what time it was. I rubbed my eyes. And I thought I was in trouble. And I say to my dad, I'm sorry, Dad. And he goes, don't ever apologize for seeking God and praying. Right. And He's the most beautiful thing. And he cried and gave me a hug. And I think from that day on, it was just really awesome. You know, it was important, and it was the thing. You know, you'll never forget that. You know, and people even said, as I grew up in my faith, oh, he was too young to understand what happened for him to give his life at 5 years old. Well, no, I remember. You know, you'll never forget that time that you connect with God. And there's a lot of people that knock God, but they've never tried him. So how can you knock something you never tried? You know, if you've never had that relationship, you've never connected, don't tell me that it's not important, because you can't tell somebody that something's not important when you haven't had that experience, you know.
Beautiful. And I appreciate that. And, you know, I've often said about these coffee chats, we were just talking about it this morning, that I know that God, his mission with it is that maybe it's for big audiences and maybe it isn't, but it's for the one person. Maybe it's just for the one person that guest touches their heart. And I have to tell you, what you just said, it touched my heart. That was on my heart this week. Don't ever apologize for seeking God if you have conviction in that, because look at what it has done. This thread of your life has been woven. Nothing was wasted. And we are gifted with the incredibly gifted and talented you, Joey. I.L.O. So
you're so sweet.
Thank you so much. We love you. This Rutz household, we love our Joey I.L.O.
Can I do a shameless plug before we leave?
Oh, yes. Please tell people where they can find you and anything you want.
Please check out my Dry Bar special. And when you go, if you download the comedy app, it's Dry Bar Comedy app. You can if you download the app, you can watch the whole special for free. It's a 30-minute special, and you just search for it. It's Just Work With What You Got. That's the name of the special. Just Work With What You Got. Yeah. And I only had one side of my arm, and that's why I named it that. Just Work With What You Got.
Yes.
I was basically working with just one half of my body, and the crowd had no idea. But when you go and you check that out, please leave a heart. It helps with my rating. Like my videos on YouTube, like my Instagram. Leave some hearts. Give some love. Okay? Give some love.
Yes, because you give so much, and we all appreciate it. So yes. And we can't wait till we can have you back here at the Cubby Hole again on the stage, blessing more hearts. So Joey, for now, I'm going to say goodbye. We'll talk after, but I'm just going to say goodbye for now. And I just thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. Thank you for everything that you shared today.
Thank you.
Bye, Joey. Okay, isn't he amazing? And like I said, I don't know if there's whoever's heart he touched today. I know that he touched mine. I appreciate that so much, everything that he shared and his authenticity. So hang on a minute, okay? Because I'm going to share his a clip that we were just talking about from his Dry Bar special. I'm going to share that right now, but I will look forward to seeing you all next week for another episode of Coffee Chat at the Cubby Hole. So until then, have a great week, everybody.
We go to church together. We go to a non-denominational church. You know, we grew up in different cultures, but we also grew up in different church cultures. Like she grew up in the Catholic Church, and I grew up in the Pentecostal. Where I get my moves from. With the choir, Chicago. I love this guy. What is happening right now? We made a commitment we would visit each other's churches when we got married, and I wasn't prepared for the workout I was about to have. The Catholic Church, they got pews, and there's a pew behind you and one in front of you. They're really hard wood, and I didn't know there's equipment built in. That's for praying. And there's not a lot of room, and my wife says, we got to put the equipment down. Like, what is this, an Airbnb? Are we staying the night? There's no room to put it down. You need space for that. And we fold it down, and you have to get this knee, and you got to put the knee. On the kneeler. Thank you. I started looking like the Tin Man. I'm like, I need oil! Come on, priest, bring it over. Need the oil. I'm cramping up. Then you got to get this knee. And you put your elbow here, and you put your elbow here and you put it together. And as soon as you do that, the priest goes, please stand. Please kneel. Oh, we're going down? That was a short prayer. I'm prepared. I got bad knees. Hold on. Please stand. Okay. Please kneel. Oh, we're going down again. Please stand. My wife's like, we gotta kneel. I'm working on it. Please stand. Please stand. Priest goes, please sit. My wife's like, why aren't you standing? He said, I can take a break. Please stand. Please sit. Oh, we're doing crunches. It's like a Zumba class I didn't sign up for. And then we went to my church that night, the Pentecostal. We don't even have a band. It's like an aerobic church. As you can see, I haven't been to that church for a while.